Hello, this is Neil Sheth.
And I'm Katy Holmes, and this is the Don't Do That, Do This podcast, brought to you by the British Chamber of Commerce, Dubai. On this episode, we have Jill Davidson. She's the Vice Consul of the Consular Team for the British Embassy here in Dubai, sharing some really interesting facts and information to help you as a resident in Dubai, but also supporting your visitors and letting you know the do's and don'ts of being a British expat in the UAE.
There is lots of do's and don'ts in this episode. So if you want to watch this episode, please link on the subscribe so you can be notified of future episodes as well. We're having great conversations with founders, leaders, people really doing interesting things in this region. So please subscribe, comment, leave us a review so at least you can find out about future episodes.
And thank you for your support.
This podcast wouldn't have been possible without the following teams. Rightfully for storytelling and thought leadership, Studio Red for the quality podcast studio and video production, and Sherbet Lemon for branding, social media design and editing.
Jill, welcome to the Don't Do That, Do This podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
Representing the British Embassy Consular Team. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And both Neil and I, as British expats, are really with varying degrees of expertise and experience of living here, have got lots of questions for you. But the first one I'll ask is, what's your favourite biscuit?
Something chocolatey, probably a chocolate digestive.
Okay, which is very lucky, but to enjoy later.
That's the only one that we had here. What a coincidence.
And then minis as well, which was good.
Yes. And then stretch it out over time.
So can we start with a really stupid question?
No such thing as a stupid question, so to say.
Thank you. I feel better now. What does the consular team actually do? What's the purpose of it?
The consular team are here to help British nationals abroad, is the really basic answer. But within that, there's a lot more to it. So a really short snippet is we can help people who are arrested. If someone passes away in a foreign country, we will help with that. If you want to get married, we will help with that. All of major life events, really. Marriage, death. We used to help with births, but we don't anymore. We don't register births anymore. But yeah, the main aim is to help British nationals abroad.
Okay. So I'd imagine then that every day is different, but if you could condense a typical day in terms of emails, calls, what does that look like?
So the way that we structure our consular team in the UAE, we're quite different to a lot of places in that we have two embassies here. So we have one in Abu Dhabi and we have one in Dubai. And that's purely because of the number of British nationals that we have here. We have to have two teams spread out. And we were also lucky enough to be gifted 2 bits of land by the UAE. So we have one in Dubai, one in Abu Dhabi. Our day starts at 7:30. We have a morning call every day at 8 o'clock where we will talk about what's happened the day before and talk about any new cases that we've got. And then emails are relentless. So we work very closely with our colleagues in the FCDO, so the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in the UK. So they manage everything from the UK side, and that will include things like talking to ministers about cases, dealing with MP inquiries about our cases. And then the phones. Some days I look around, I used to work in a call centre, I look around and I think this is like a call centre because the phones are just ringing off the hook. And everybody has their own caseload, so we allow people just to get on with their own time and their own caseload, and they manage how they deal with that. So our teams tend to have around 30 to 40 cases each, which is
varying degrees of responsibility as well, I'd imagine.
How big's the team?
So we're made of 14. So we have a head of operations. Mm-hmm. We have 4 vice consuls. So I'm a vice consul and there's another 3. And then we have 8 pro consuls and then a consular assistant. So the pro consuls are the case managers, basically. So when a case comes in, the vice consul will deal with it initially, and then we will pass the information on to our pro-consuls, and they will manage the case going forward.
Okay, and is that on an individual basis that you hear first in terms of the case, or do you have a stakeholder network of entities that will reach out to you?
Both. So the way that somebody would come to us is if they're coming personally. For example, if they've been arrested, they might call us directly from the police station, or their family might call us to say, my son, my brother has been arrested. We work closely, very closely with Dubai Police, and they will often send us a WhatsApp to let us know that something's happened. And then we also, in sad cases of deaths, we might get a notification from a local undertaker to say that something's happened. Hospitalizations, ward managers might call us. We're really lucky that we've built up a really good connection with a lot of our stakeholders, where they do just come to us and let us know.
And so within your stakeholder network, you say Dubai Police, undertakers or overtakers, as they are, being expats.
Yeah.
And also the schools system, law firms.
Yeah.
And our hospitals, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Anyone listening that might think they would fall under that stakeholder network, is there anybody else that is helpful? Is it HR directors or within corporates? What would help you in terms of establishing relationships?
Definitely more outreach in schools.
Yeah.
So we have a small network of schools where we go and speak every year and give presentations to new teachers or refreshers to old teachers. So we would definitely like to speak to more schools. It's always great to have a network of friendly lawyers.
Yeah.
So we have some that, because we're not legally trained in the embassy and the consular team, we have very basic knowledge of the law here. So it really helps if we can call somebody up and ask for very layman's terms, what does this law mean? Because a lot of the time the laws are written in Arabic. Then when they're translated to English, they don't quite translate in the way that I would understand it. So it's good to have somebody with a local knowledge to explain it to us.
And what would you like to say, because I'm asking this as a father of two, a 6 and a 3-year-old, what would you say to a school when you're going in there?
So if we are talking to the teachers, it's really the do's and the don'ts of living here. It's a really tolerant place to live if you abide by the laws. And actually, if you look at the laws, they're not dissimilar to the laws in the UK or the laws wherever, this expat is from. But just using the UK, for example, that there's drugs laws in the UK. There are laws around drink driving in the UK. There are laws around assault. That, what's illegal in the UK is likely to be illegal here. So I think for us, we just like to give people a reminder, a refresher. But then there are certain things that are a bit unusual. So the laws around cross-dressing, for example, that's not illegal in the UK, but it is here. So just raise an awareness, but also raise an awareness about what to do if you do get into trouble and what we can do to help. So a lot of people say, can you get me out of prison? And we can't. If there's an allegation against you, you have to allow the process to take place.
Right.
So we can't ring up our contacts and get you out of prison, unfortunately. But we can help you to understand the process better and how things might look along that line.
In our engagements, but we talk a lot. One thing that always crosses my mind is when you say the sooner that you engage with the consular team, the better. Sometimes you hear of, situations and you could have helped if you'd been alerted earlier.
Definitely.
What would be a typical example of where somebody should reach out to you immediately?
I would say at any point, if you become aware that a police case has been raised against you, you can reach out to us. There are people that have cases against them, criminal cases. I've got one that's really strong example that springs to mind where there was a criminal case and that person dealt with it independently and we weren't aware. But after the criminal case had resolved itself, a civil case was then brought against them, and that person did not realise that could happen. Whereas we would have perhaps been able to give them that knowledge that that was an option of something that might happen later down the line for them to be aware of. Whereas they were just sort of totally in the dark and didn't know. We don't know everything, but if we don't know the answer, we will probably know somebody who does know the answer.
Yeah. And with, the burgeoning expat community, so I think you said 140,000 Brits living here in the UAE.
Yep, and about 1.5 million tourists a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll break that down, because the tourism element's obviously really, really key. What are the rising cases that you're seeing? Kind of give us a sense of, almost from a prevention perspective, what would you like to see less of that you're seeing a rise of?
So drugs cases would be number one. Secondly, drink driving. And thirdly, what we would term as welfare cases. And the sort of typical thing around that is that someone will come to the UAE on a job hunt and won't either bring enough money with them to sustain themselves for the period of time whilst they're looking for a job, but also they don't know about the visa regulations, so then they end up being a visa overstayer. And to try and leave the country, they'll have huge fines, and have that fine wiped will normally mean a lifetime ban.
Oh wow! Yeah, I was gonna ask what happens in that situation.
So we in the past have supported people to help them leave. So we will go with you to immigration and speak to the immigration officers to have fines either reduced or wiped. But ultimately, it is an immigration decision whether they do that. And a lot of the time, if they do wipe them, you won't be allowed back in the country.
And I do think people realise that, because I lived here for 12 years and I was always hearing of, not friends, but people I knew of that were trying to leave and actually couldn't leave the airport. Like, you cannot leave this country if there's a fine against you. And I think that's probably something that perhaps has been diluted with such a fresh intake of new people.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the consular from a prevention perspective? What communication channels do you have that can reach either new people, or we'll move to tourism, those coming here just for a holiday?
So we have a social media presence. So we've got a UK in UAE Instagram page and Facebook page. But I would say the most beneficial thing is our travel advice.
Yeah.
Before I started in the consular team, I had never heard of travel advice and had no idea what it was. And there's quite a heavy emphasis placed on the travel advice. So you can sign up to travel alerts basically for any country. But what I found it really useful for is the entry requirements. So I'm lucky enough in consular that I've been able to travel a little bit and have been to countries that I'd never been to before. And before traveling, I was thinking, do I need a visa for this place? How do I get in? What do I need to do? And it's all on travel advice. But it also breaks down the laws on there.
What's the website URL?
So it's the gov.uk website,
Yep.
and then you could just go on travel advice, and
Got it.
it's country by country.
Yep.
So you can say, for example, if you're traveling to Thailand or Sri
Yep.
Lanka or somewhere, you can sign up just for their travel advice.
Got it.
But if you live in the UAE, it's really good because then you get updates to the travel advice through. So if there's a significant law change and we update our
okay.
travel advice, we will then tell you.
That's useful.
It's really useful,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
And also from a regional security perspective as well, if the level changes, it will alert you.
Yes.
Good. So, like, when I look at social media, you see a lot especially on Facebook groups, where people say, I'm coming out to Dubai, haven't got a job, really looking forward to it, really need some help. Here's my CV. Where shall I go to meet people? How do I get a job? And often that person will just come.
Yeah.
And I actually know someone really well, you know her too. And she actually took that route, and she did a phenomenal job to actually land her job and her role. But often forget people coming in, the people living here trying to look for a role is incredibly hard, right? So So I can see how that's tough, and that creates a bit of a situation where they've come here, they've been here for a month, they can't find the role, they're running out of money, it's an expensive place to live, you can spend money. Someone actually said a phrase the other day, said, Dubai makes you buy. To me the other day, I was like, okay, how long have you been thinking about that for? But anyway, so is there like going back to the prevention advice, is there a line somewhere to say, look, if you're coming here without a job, you should have X, Y, Z in place, or a certain amount, or you should live here? Is there any advice around that?
So we have a living in guide online, which gives a bit more practical advice on living here. I don't know if it covers sort of what you should do if you're coming here on a job hunt. It's a good idea. All of our travel advice has to be cleared by colleagues in London, but it is a good idea that we should have that. I suppose it's very independent. Some people will come with a small amount of money and make it last. Some people will come with a lot of money and not make it last.
Yeah.
But a lot of people probably don't realise that we have no access to money. So we have people who either call us or they will turn up outside the embassy needing accommodation, needing a flight home.
Really? Wow.
Needing their fines to be paid. And, we're a government entity. We don't have access to money.
You're very good at signposting for professional help as well. I know that. But also if we talk about BCAF, the British Community Assistance Fund, which is a volunteer-run support group, which is actually, it's been established longer than even the British Chamber of Commerce. It's 38 years in existence.
Yeah.
They do incredible work. They are completely reliant on donations, but they support you. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about BCAF?
So we've been working with BCAF quite closely for a number of years, but I would say certainly since I've been in the consular team, our relationship has got even closer. So I think it's important to stress that BCAF aren't just a pot of money, but what they also do really well is that emotional support, because we don't necessarily always have the time to give that person that emotional, that pastoral support that maybe they need, whereas BCAF do. They're a much smaller team than us. They are great at giving that emotional support and also that problem solving. I think they've got more contacts than we do. The great Sandra and James have been here for, I think, longer than the UAE has even been the UAE. So they're great, but they can help financially, but there are certain things that need to be met in order for them to help. And they certainly aren't going to pay for someone to sustain their life here. They will help vulnerable people get back to the UK, but they're not going to sort of pay for accommodation or pay rent to stay here for a long time. But they are, and I don't know where we would be without them a lot of the time.
They're fabulous.
Yeah.
Just for anybody listening that has a CSR budget, then obviously we can help put them in contact to support that, because whilst, living in Dubai is an amazing experience, if it does go wrong, then this is the other end of it, and people to help need more people.
Definitely, and
help more people.
and most of the people that BCAF do help are really vulnerable. So they've helped victims of rape and sexual assault before. They've helped people that have nowhere else to turn. So I think it's important to sort of stress that they're not helping people escape crime or helping people get out of the country. They're helping those who really, really are in desperate need of it.
Yeah.
Talking about crime, so, when you speak to anyone in Dubai who's looking to move out here, or is out here already, they'll often say one of the pros of Dubai is the fact that there's no crime. Yeah, and it's super safe. My kids can just walk around and do what they want, and then they'll come home. In reality, you're the person who sees the problems. What does it actually look like? And what have you seen over the last couple of years in terms of how bad it's got, if it has?
I would still say it is a really safe place. You see on social media the videos of people leaving their bags and their phones on a table and
Yep.
walking away, and then coming back and it's still there.
Yeah.
There's crime everywhere in the world. Nowhere has a completely crime-free place. I studied criminology at university, and as a society, we need crime. Crime has to happen. There has to be an element of crime. There always will be. We can't abide by the laws all of the time. What's changed, I would say, is the demographic of people traveling to, I'm going to sort of highlight Dubai here. Obviously, there's 7 Emirates here, and each one has its own qualities. But if I just sort of focus on Dubai, the past few years has seen that demographic change. You've got opening of new hotels, new beach clubs, which attract a younger crowd. So, it's been compared to the new Ibiza. We're getting those really big beach clubs that are in Europe are now coming to here. And when I came here, the flights were a lot cheaper. The flights aren't as cheap anymore, but people are still finding the money to come here and to spend a week here. So that's changed, completely changed. And with that change in demographic comes with it a change in what crimes are being committed. So we do see a lot more drugs cases than we did a few years ago. And just in general, just a higher level of arrests. Whilst people might think that that's crime on the rise, which yes it is, but it also shows that the local authorities are doing their job and doing what they need to do. In the UK, if you commit an offence, there's a police service, and they will arrest you, or they will give you an out of court disposal or whatever they need to do, but you will be held to account for your actions. And there's there isn't a difference here.
Apart from the penalties are a lot more severe, which is why it is such a safe place. People abide.
Yeah. Hopefully, as part of prevention, getting people to understand that trafficking drugs or promoting drugs, which is just like selling in the UK, that can carry a 25-year prison sentence.
Is it? And sorry to interrupt, just on that, is this more the people, like how would you split the issues, if you can, between people living here versus people that are travelling in, that maybe they're not accustomed to the culture here, they haven't educated themselves, they've gone, hey, this is like travelling to Miami or Ibiza, but it's very different. What, is there a clear, hey, it's the tourists more than the locals, or not?
It's quite a mix of both. So, to sound a bit like a parent, there's residents here that should know better. And then there are tourists that perhaps don't realise what the penalties are when they come. And, a few years ago, there was the whole cannabis oil issue where that was legal. I think it still is legal in the UK, and it's illegal here. And there were a lot of people travelling with it and not realising that it was illegal here. So I think that there are people that genuinely perhaps get caught out. One thing that's really important to note here is having it in your system is possession. So you don't even have to have anything on your person. If it's in your blood, then that is possession. So you might have actually had the drugs outside of the UAE, but when you travel in, if for any reason you come to the police attention and they do a blood test, then that still classes as possession.
And I think when we were talking before about drink driving, it's a similar situation. Whilst you have your police camera action documentaries that are always reminding drivers how easy it is to be pulled over, and there's police are very, very visible on the roads. Whilst there might not be that facility here, should you have an accident, you will be tested for alcohol in your system.
And you might not have caused the accident, but if you drive down Sheikh Zayed Road and see the number of supercars that are hired by people that don't know how to drive them, and they crash into you, you're still part of that accident, and you will still probably be breath tested for that. And the penalties, huge fines, and likely a small custodial sentence as well. So you'll spend maybe a week to 2 weeks in a police station whilst you see the prosecutor. So, it's not like the UK where you'll be released the next day and you go to court in 2-3 months' time to answer to it then. It's all dealt with quite quickly in succession, but you still might have a stay in a police station.
And for absolute clarity, it's zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
It's not one drink and you're okay to drive. If you've had a heavy meal, it's zero tolerance.
And there's no excuse, because there's some cool companies, right, that pick you up. If you've driven to the restaurant or the bar, there's some cool companies that will pick you up from there and take your car with you home.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's even easier than back.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's so many taxis.
Yeah, and taxis.
Your car's normally probably in a valet at a hotel, so if you can stay there overnight, you can get a taxi, you can get the metro. There's so many options for people to not drink drive.
Yeah. What about health insurance? So when somebody's visiting, you've got a family relative and either there's an ailment they had before that, accelerates while they're here, or if they're involved in an accident, what's the advice that you give for people travelling here and health insurance?
Make sure you have some travel insurance. Don't come here without travel insurance, because the healthcare is great, but it comes at a cost. So you will be entitled to free emergency care at one of the government hospitals. They're not just going to leave you. But as soon as you are stabilised, you start then racking up the hospital fees. But it's not just that. It's when you need to go back to the UK, if you need some kind of medical repatriation or you need a business class flight because you have to lie down on that flight, that all comes at a huge cost. Travel insurance coming from the UK for a standard policy is really cheap. There are some companies like £10-15 for a week.
Yeah, peace of mind, isn't it?
Yeah, but also just get it, because if your luggage gets lost, you're protected for that. Yeah, it's not just even your health. It's, it covers a lot of different things. Theft, if something gets stolen, you covered on that. But yeah, get travel insurance. There is a lot of people that travel without it.
Yeah, I suppose it's also, so many people would normally go to Europe, and now they're kind of, the brand Dubai is doing extremely well. It's an amazing destination for a holiday as well as living here. So people that might have already been going to to Europe are just thinking, well, it's no different. They've got, well, it's not even E111 anymore, but that kind of that mindset, mentality. So yeah, that's something just to labour the point. If you have for the listeners, if you have visitors coming, make sure they've got health insurance and travel insurance, because otherwise probably the resident would have to be producing the credit card to cover the expenses. So it's in the listeners' interest to enforce that for their visitors.
Yeah, and speaking of credit cards, a lot of bank accounts and credit card companies have them on the credit cards in the UK. So, there's a lot of different and I think quite cost-effective ways of getting travel insurance. We have a lot of accidents where people go out into the desert and do like the buggy rides and the camel rides, and they come off and they get injured.
Oh man!
Jet ski accidents.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So please come with travel insurance.
So going back to the Consular Team, and there being a variety of expertise, would you mind just sharing what your journey was from the UK? Obviously you studied criminology, then 5 years in the police, UK police.
Yeah, 5 years in West Yorkshire Police. And then sort of mid-COVID, so beginning of 2021, I thought I'd quite like a change from the police. Quite like to go somewhere warm. And I travelled to Dubai in the past on holiday, so it's very different on holiday to living here, but I thought I've seen it before. That calmed my nerves a little bit, and then I just thought, okay, I need a job that's similar to what I do now, because for all the police wasn't perfect, the part that I really enjoyed was helping people. So I thought, what can I do where I can help people? And saw the consular job, moved in October 2021, and came straight into the team. So yeah, it's been a good journey. It felt quite seamless at some parts. I thought it's obviously meant to be because everything just fell into place really well.
Nice.
But yeah, so there's quite a few ex-police officers on the team. I think there's 4 of us. We've also got ex-social workers, ex-prison guard. So we have a really good spread of knowledge on the team, and we've got people that have been here for a varied amount of time. So you've got people that have been here for longer and have seen that development of Dubai and the UAE and how it's changed.
Yeah. And the plans for the team to grow?
No.
So anybody listening from the UK that's
Yeah.
currently looking for a job?
That's going to pack their bags. And
Not right now.
Not at the moment. We have just recently recruited somebody, but we have Arabic speakers on the team as well. We have to have some Arabic because we have to translate documents, and some of the local authorities say, for example, in Sharjah or Fujairah, prefer to speak to an Arabic speaker. So we always have someone on the team who is Arabic. So no, we're not growing the team at the moment, but it is Dubai and the UAE as a whole is very transient. People come here for a short amount of time. So, that there will probably always be opportunities, not just in consular, but the embassy as a wider mission. There's often job roles there.
So one of the questions I used to get, and I don't get any more, so it just goes to show that things have changed a lot from the UK looking at the UAE, was family members coming and saying, what should I wear? And packing jackets and cardigans. But now the reality is that you walk into a mall and people are wearing less than they might wear at the beach. So has that relaxed, or is that still something that visitors and residents should abide by?
I think it's something you should be aware of. A government building, you will still be turned away if you're a female and you have your knees and shoulders out. And I think it's all about respect as well. So you're not gonna. Certain places like, for example, the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, you're not going to be in unless you're suitably dressed. But I think there's a respect thing there when you're walking around.
I guess
in any shopping mall, actually, anywhere in the world.
Definitely. But I had this same conversation with a friend that came to visit me in February. She last came out about 10 years ago, and she said, "Can I even walk down the street?" I was like, "Of course, yeah, of course."
Because when we moved, we saw Ramadan last year, and then Ramadan this year, and you could see the difference. And then when you talk to people that have been, and I guess you would know this as well, is a big difference to what it was maybe 5 years ago. So you could see it's becoming relaxed. When you said government buildings, what does that mean?
So if you went to, for example, an immigration building or public prosecution, or you even needed to go and report something to the police, any kind of local authority building, you should be respectfully dressed.
And same for men as well, not to wear shorts. I'm sure somebody told us a story.
That was me, I think. No, actually not me. It was
to go and run and get a pair of trousers.
Yeah, it's my friend actually. He went for his visa, and he had to wait until Brands for Less was open. And he walked around and he went, "What is the cheapest pair of trousers here?" It's some oversized trousers.
That's the thing, like a lot of people that are...
Oh no, it's his hijari. It wasn't visa, his hijari.
Yeah. Everyone that moves here will have to go to a government building for something to do with their visa or their rent.
Yes.
At some point while we're here, we'll have to do that.
So who knows, that might become like 3/4 lengths might be fine. And but yeah.
Depends how knobbly the knees are.
Yeah.
But how expensive.
That's true.
Expensive it is. Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to get across? Obviously with the podcast theme is don't do that, do this. I think we've covered quite a few obvious things, but is there anything else that you could see from a prevention perspective that would help the listeners in their own expat experience and also visitors to the UAE?
I think just think everyone should just have a better awareness and a better understanding of what it's like to live here from both a financial perspective. You mentioned before that it is an expensive place to live. It is what you make it. If you want to go and eat 5 dirham shawarma, then you can. If you want to go and dine at Nobu, then you can do that too. But I think everyone should just come with a better understanding of what it's like to visit and what it's like to live here. There's a reason why there are so many of us living here, so many expats, and there's a reason why there's so many travellers and tourists, and that's because it is a great place. And I feel like we almost need to protect how great it is.
True.
I agree with that.
And you look at how busy the roads are, for example. The traffic has changed dramatically, and I think just everyone needs to just have a better understanding of what it's like to be here. From a consular perspective, sign up to travel advice would be a huge thing for those alerts, and just have a read through and just gives you those helpful hints and tips, but use it forever wherever you travel to, and whether you're living here and you travel somewhere else or you're coming from the UK, have a look. It's really, really helpful. And just, if it's illegal in the UK, it's illegal here too. So just, think about the consequences for not just you, but your wider family. If you're here with your partner or your children and you do something which will result in a deportation, it's not just you going back to the UK, it's your whole family going back. So yeah, just be sensible.
And also to follow you on social media, because that's your communication channel if there was something of urgency that you wanted to get out to British expats here. So that would be a call to action for everybody following, and we'll include the information and how to find you. Can you remember off the top of your head what your...
UK in UAE.
Great.
And yeah, it's quite good because, our phone lines went down recently. We posted on there that the phone went down. So it's a good place to start for some quick, helpful hints and tips.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Well, on behalf of all the British expats living here, thank you for doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I know it's must be exhausting emotionally and physically to be fielding all of those inquiries. So thank you. Thanks for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.